One of the things I'm doing is I'm getting my nose done. Finally. It's been bothering me forever. And Sarper has actually designed a new nose for me.
Oh, Shekinah, really? Everything everyone told you about not letting Sarper control you has clearly gone in one ear and out the other. But the real shock here, the real change since we last saw these two on our screens, is that this power dynamic might have levelled out slightly. Shekinah might actually be controlling Sarper too.
Shekinah was so insistent about me leaving the female clients, and 90% of my clients are female. So from my income, 90% cut right now.
Yeah, these two are definitely unhealthy for one another. But before we get into that, let's just quickly recap. So Shekinah and Sarper are like the world's worst Barbie and STD Ken. The last time we saw them, Shekinah had moved to Turkey, and we saw Sarper attempting to control every single part of Shekinah's life. From her clothes right down to weighing her daily. Yeah, and the worst part is Shekinah was fine with it. Now, the biggest issue in their relationship turned out to be kids. You see, Sarper has a kid that he's never seen. It was a holiday fling with a Russian lady that he lost contact with after he deleted her email. So now, Sarper wants take two. He wants another kid with Shekinah.
Sarper decided to reveal that he wants to have a child.
If we are not seeing the future, if we don't want a kid, yeah, that's it.
Future.
Now, despite Shekinah being crystal clear with Sarper from the very first date, despite telling him that she has no interest in having another child, remember, she has a 15-year-old daughter that she's left back in the States at boarding school, Sarper then literally threw his toys out of the pram. He had a hissy fit, and he insisted that unless Shekinah gives him a baby, unless he can continue his lineage, there's just no point in them being together. But when we catch up with them in this episode in what looks to be a steamy video call, it looks like Sarper may have changed his tune.
To be honest, I still want a child from her, but if it our relationship, let her choose or decide whatever she wants.
Look, Sarper, you may not be used to this, you may not be used to a woman laying down the rules, but sorry mate, her body, her rules. Shekinah's 41 years old now, she has a 15-year-old daughter. She's been honest and upfront with you that she doesn't want another kid. It's you that suddenly flipped the script. But, more to the point, why are these two on a video call? If everything was going as well as they'd like us to believe, shouldn't Shekinah be in Turkey with her man? Well, it sounds like their lifestyle there just wasn't sustainable, unfortunately.
Sarper and I were really having a lot of financial difficulties in Turkey, and I can't practice there as an esthetician. So I came back to the US and I just kind of stayed.
It's now been 3 months since Shekinah last visited Turkey. She's back in the States working, and while she's very quick to justify why that is, how she's missed her daughter, how she doesn't have a job out there, all perfectly reasonable explanations, of course, there is a slight sense that maybe things aren't quite as rosy in their relationship as they'd want the world to believe.
When I ask Sarper where he is or what he's doing, he gets so defensive, he gets so upset. He'll go as far as breaking up with me.
Ah yes, trust. You know, that key fundamental part of any relationship. The thing that seems to be missing between these two. Now Shekinah says that after breaking up with her, Sarper will inevitably be back on the phone crying and telling her that he never wants to be apart from her. Yeah, sounds very healthy, right? But remember, Shekinah has her reasons for not fully trusting him. By his last estimates, based on his little black book, Sarper claims to have slept with anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 other women before he met Shekinah. Yeah, so it's no wonder that Shekinah doesn't really trust him. She finds it hard to believe that someone like that will remain committed and faithful whilst in a long-distance relationship.
I need Sarper to convince me that he really is the reformed bad boy that he says he is. Going from being basically a boy to being in a serious relationship overnight. It's not easy.
Now, Sarper claims he's been 100% faithful to Shekinah. And to be fair to him, it doesn't really seem like Shekinah's given him much of an opportunity to cheat. What between the constant calls, texts and check-ins?
Shekinah is always possessive. She always asks, "Where are you? What are you doing?" She is kind of interrogating me. I feel that.
But being apart for 3 months seems to have taken its toll on Sarper's mental health. And interestingly, when he's stressed, it seems to come out in a very peculiar way for him.
I start to be anxious. And when I'm anxious or depressed, I count everything.
Sarper reveals that when he's stressed, he can't seem to stop counting things. Yeah, counting, like from grains of rice on his plate to the number of cars passing by his apartment window. He claims he's not sure if he's meditating or if this is some kind of undiagnosed OCD. And knowing this, with that, it suddenly seems to make sense why he's kept track of every single woman he's slept with, doesn't it?
I recorded all my body counts to a notebook.
Oh my God. Oh my.
This revelation makes the notebook less of a gross trophy and more like a physical manifestation of how depressed he's been for his entire life. Yeah, and maybe it's this same trait that also makes him compelled to try and control how Shekinah looks. Not that that's an excuse or a justification for his behaviour, but maybe this helps us to understand him a bit better. It adds depth to his strange character.
So many people, they just see my muscles. You know icebergs, they have a part here above the water and something big under the water.
So as we join Sarper as he's gone to visit his cousins and his niece, it very much seems like he's trying to show us under the surface. He's trying to get a bit more personal with us. He wants us to see what's under the bonnet, under the iceberg that we met last season. His family clearly love him. His niece adores him. He wants us to see that he's more than just the controlling weirdo that we saw last season. And in fact, he actually gets pretty vulnerable. He tells us all about the financial difficulties that have led to Shekinah going back to the States.
Daha sonra gidip geliyordu. Uçak biletleri aşırı pahalı. Yani daha da pahalandı.
Sen mi alıyorsun?
Ben alıyorum. Gidiş dönüş. Hani bir yere kadar...
Her ay alınmaz ya.
Now, remember, Sarper is a personal trainer, a former dancer. It's not like he's earning crazy amounts of money. Yet, despite that, he claims to have been paying for Shekinah's tickets, round-trip tickets from Istanbul back to LA, practically every month, so that she could go back and visit her daughter. So, what with this being a single-income household, what with Shekinah not being able to find employment in Turkey, it's no wonder they ran out of money. But the thing is, Shekinah isn't exactly helping matters. You see, she's not exactly making it easy for Sarper to earn a living.
Kız öğrenci çalıştırmamı istemiyor.
Sadece erkeklerle mi çalışıyorsun?
Ne alakaydı ya?
Dokunmanı istemiyorum diyor.
Sarper's cousins are absolutely baffled by what he's telling them. Yeah, this was an issue we saw firsthand in their last season, but clearly it's continued ever since. Shekinah doesn't trust him enough to be physically close to any other woman, even a client, which, yeah, his job does kind of entail. So, unfortunately, what this means is that Sarper's suffered a huge financial loss at work.
And 90% of my clients are females. So, from my income, 90% cut right now. I have no savings left.
Sarper's cousins ask him when he's going to finally set some barriers with Shekinah. They tell him that today he's not allowed to touch women, but maybe tomorrow she won't even let him leave the house. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, how the tables have turned, it seems. I mean, here we all were, based on last season, worried that Sarper's the controlling toxic one. But behind the scenes, if Sarper's to be believed at least, it seems like Shekinah might be pretty bad in her own right too. Yeah, what a toxic relationship.
Hani geçmişimi biliyor az çok tamam ondan şüpheleniyor diye bazen mesela o çok büyük bir problem oldu yani ayrılmaya kadar gittik. Arıyor mesela.
Yes, Sarper, but you need to take responsibility for that. Like, is it any wonder that your past worries her? You're the one that constantly parades it like a badge of honour. You tell everyone at every opportunity you get. Yeah, it's no wonder she feels insecure. The truth is, it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time for Sarper to repeatedly, over and over again, prove himself to Shekinah before they've built that trust. But even with that being the case, it doesn't mean, or at least it shouldn't mean, that Shekinah gets to enforce toxic rules that financially impact Sarper in a negative way. Like, that isn't okay either. The guy should be able to earn a living.
I understand that Shekinah has trust issues. I've been with many women and I am the worst resume guy on the planet, but I changed so much.
Okay, Sarper can say he's changed all he wants, but he still definitely needs to prove it. Actions speak louder than words, Sarper. But the thing is, Sarper says he wants to see more acknowledgement, more encouragement from Shekinah, praising him for just how much he's turned his life around. In fact, based on what he says, her lack of acknowledgement actually seems to be rubbing him up the wrong way. There's an unspoken tension that's building up in their relationship, and it's led to the point where Sarper is now very close to exploding.
There's a limit, like a glass of water. You can put a little more, and it spills over afterwards.
Sarper says he's going to speak to Shekinah about her demands the next time she comes to visit him in Turkey. Now, on that topic, over in LA when we join up with Shekinah, she's in the midst of preparing for her trip to Turkey by getting her dog Adonis groomed and ready for travel.
When I moved to Turkey, Adonis stayed in LA with one of my friends, but I'm tired of being apart from my dog. So I'm taking him to live with Sarper and I there.
I have so many questions right now. Like, first and foremost, who's paying for this? And is Shekinah moving permanently again? Like, I was under the impression that this was just another visit, but if it's a visit, why is she dragging her dog along? Like, it's not a short trip, it's a 13 or 14 hour flight. Something doesn't quite add up here.
So I'm taking him to live with Sarper and I there.
And as she meets her friends at the groomers, conversation soon turns to why her friends haven't seen Shekinah out and about recently.
I've asked him to not train female clients anymore, and in return he asked me to please not take part in LA events when I'm here, so...
Now, there's two ways to see this. Either this is compromise, and they're both compromising for the sake of their relationship, or the alternative is this is very toxic. I think it's messed up. I see it as them both holding each other back. Like, sorry, but it's definitely not healthy if Shekinah can't socialise with her friends anymore. Don't forget, we definitely saw the red flags, the hallmarks of Sarper alienating Shekinah from her own family last season. I just really hope that that trend hasn't continued or got worse. But sadly, judging by Shekinah's friends' faces, I think it might have. This really doesn't sound good.
Hearing that she's been sitting at home doing nothing.
That's not like her.
And I hate hearing that. It's really
Depressing.
upsetting.
Sad. We see a change.
Shekinah's friends clearly have alarm bells over what she's telling them. But the thing is, it's about to get a whole lot worse. You see, as Shekinah explains that Sarper's been struggling with long distance, her friends innocently ask if it will ever be possible to bring Sarper over to the States.
You know how I feel about marriage. I never have really wanted to get married, but I feel like I could take that step with him. So we applied for the K-1 visa.
Now, it's not the worst idea in the world, right? Like, if Sarper moves to America, they can both work, he can earn more money than he does in Turkey, and most important, or at least it should be the most important factor, is that Shekinah will be close by to her daughter. But the thing is, her friends are very worried that she might be marrying him for all the wrong reasons. Now, it's important to point out, keep in mind, it's all hypothetical at this point. Sarper hasn't yet proposed, but even still, her friends are very, very worried that she might be rushing into this.
If it weren't this situation, marriage would never be coming up. If it weren't about him having to move to a different country, they would not be discussing marriage.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Like, Shekinah's friend is basically saying, if Sarper were an ordinary guy in America, and these two were at the same stage of their relationship, marriage wouldn't even be in the conversation at this point. They'd be a million miles away from marriage. So, that being the case, why is she seriously considering it with Sarper, even though they clearly have so many problems? It seems really clear that Shekinah just isn't focusing on the important stuff right now.
One of the things I'm doing is I'm getting my nose done. Finally. It's been bothering me forever. And Sarper has actually designed a new nose for me.
Oh no, Shekinah, no! So many people have tried to make it clear to Shekinah, have tried to get through to her, that the way he controls her shouldn't be okay. But rather than take heed of that advice, what's Shekinah done? She's allowed him to design a nose for her, to his liking. Wow, I mean, it's so messed up. Yeah, you just can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, can you? This is all gonna end very badly, and she's gonna have no one to blame but herself. And this news of her new Sarper-designed nose is one step too far for even her friends.
He's a stripper who slept with 2,500 people. I'm supposed to sit here and act like it's no big deal. He's going to control the center of your face right now, and you're ready to marry this guy?
Yes, thank you, yes, absolutely spot on. Shekinah's friend is totally right, yet sadly, tragically, we all know it's not going to be enough to get Shekinah to change her mind. Yeah, Sarper and Shekinah are trapped. They're in this toxic vortex with one another. It's a messed up, obsessive kind of love that's leading them both to try and control each other's lives. And the truth is, that kind of love never ever ends well.